Hey, hey, friends. Welcome to Educating Kids and Equipping Families. I'm your host, Christine Furman. And today I have a lovely special guest with us, Jess Hatheway Burkhart. I am so excited to be able to welcome you onto the show today. Thanks so much, Jess, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm excited.
Yes, me too. So, we recently did a show all about mental health struggles, mental health strategies, and I could not think of a better guest to support our conversation than Jess. Jess and I have had some wonderful, wonderful conversations all about mental health, about motherhood, about nutrition, fitness. So, Jess, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what are some of the things that you do?
Sure, absolutely. My name is Jess Hatheway Burkhart. I am the owner of a company called The Wholistic Picture. And I am a women's wellness and lifestyle coach. And so, what I do, I take a little bit of a different approach than probably most people that hear those terms. As Christine mentioned, we've had many conversations about kind of societal standards and things like that and breaking the mold of that. And that's really what my foundation is for my company and how I approach wellness, particularly with women. We do it in a little bit of a different way. It is very non-obsessive, non-rigid, non-restrictive, and really coming up with not a one size fits all plan because everybody is so unique in their own journey. Personally, my journey started with mental health, which is why it's a very large foundation for what I do. We focus a lot on mental health. We focus a lot on stress management in particular, because somebody might not be necessarily diagnosed with a mental health disorder or anything like that, but we all have stress. We're
Yes.
all human. We all have stress. For me, though, about a decade ago, I've been in this space for about a decade, and was really struggling with generalized anxiety disorder and depression. And that's really what started my own journey for fitness and nutrition in particular. I had been diagnosed and then I was put on medication, which is kind of the normal
Mhm.
societal thing that happens when you're diagnosed. I personally, I'm not a mental health therapist or anything like that. So I just always disclaimer this. I personally did not care for medication.
Mhm.
That was my own personal journey with it. And I was really on a journey to find something that was more of a natural path towards navigating those different symptoms that I was experiencing and also learning about why, like biologically, why
Yeah.
this happens in our body with mental health. And so I had just started reading and researching. And honestly, two of the top things that you can do are focus on your nutrition and focus on your physical activity, because both of those really help support our neurotransmitters and our hormones that help support positive mental health. And that's kind of what started my
Love
journey.
it.
And so everything that I do pretty much stems from that. And it kind of has just expanded from not just only focusing on fitness and nutrition, but also on everything in our life because
Mhm.
everything affects everything else
Yep.
when it comes to our wellness. So when our fitness and nutrition are off, it can oftentimes affect how we show up in our family life. It can show up how we or show up in how we go out to work or manage our business, because it all affects our energy levels. So
Yes.
we focus on all kinds of different pillars. And we really take a whole picture approach, which is what the holistic picture name stems from. So that's what I do for my company. I'm also a personal trainer and a fitness instructor. So we do non contact boxing at
I love
two
it.
local fitness boxing clubs. And I love that. That's where I met my husband. Um, and don't worry, we
I
don't
love
each other or anything like that.
I love it.
But that's where we met. And I am personal training certified, holistic nutrition certified, nutrition and wellness coaching, and then also most recently, prenatal and postpartum fitness specialist certified. And we are expecting our first baby next month. So,
Woohoo! Coming up. So exciting. Oh, and as you guys know, you can see how well Jess and I fit together here. Oh my gosh, we had a call a couple months ago and it was hours.
Yeah.
that we did a couple recordings, but it was a couple hours, and it
Mhm.
was just the conversation just flows so easily because we have a lot of um, those same focus areas,
Mhm.
that same train of thought, things like that. So that's why this is so exciting for me to be able to have you as a guest on the show because you're absolutely right. Like our nutrition, our health, our, exercising, how all of those things play into our day. And it
Yep.
is definitely something that I share with the moms in the community that
Mhm.
I get up and I work out. Even the days I don't want to, there are days I don't, right? There are days that the schedule kind of takes over,
Yep.
but then those are the days sometimes, or if I skip 2 days or a week, I'm like, "What is wrong? Like, I just feel off. What's going on?" And then
Yep.
it hits me and it's like, "Oh, you know what? I haven't moved my body like I usually do."
Mhm.
Or, we go through stretches where it's like, "Oh, we're at a party and we're eating out and we're, all of that different food that's off
Mhm.
schedule." And again, it's like, "What is wrong? What's off?" And I'm a firm believer in that too, like looking at internally, like what is going on internally? If I have a headache, I ask myself, what happened? What's going
Mhm.
on? How can I fix this? Um, not um not necessarily taking any kind of medication, but like what can I do for that? So I love all of it. And Jess and I actually met at a summer fadeaway event hosted
Mhm.
by the Autism Caring Center. We were right next to each other and started
Yep.
talking. You just got married or you were just
We're
getting
about
married?
to. We're about to.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been a whirlwind of a year because that was the beginning of
August.
August last year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we got married towards the end of August, and then I got pregnant, pretty quickly. So,
I love that. I
yeah,
love it so
yeah,
much.
yeah.
So exciting for that. So, what I would like to do yesterday, I shared kind of some strategies on how can we really help our mental health? How can we either support someone else or what are some strategies that we can do for ourselves? And
Mhm.
I shared some of the things that I used to do and I still do, some I am affirmation kind of
Yep.
statements, one of the things that I prayed for when I had babies was patience, and I just wrote over and over, I am a patient parent, I am a positive person, those things, those thoughts that we want to put, that we want out, we've got to put them in. And I shared yesterday, if we're putting negativity into our brain, into our body, what's going to come out? More likely, negativity. If we fill our body, we fill our soul with that positivity, we're going to get more of that positivity. So, I'd like to, have some of your suggestions, your strategies on how can moms kind of find that peace in the chaos of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, so so many things, right? So it oftentimes feels like there's so many different moving parts to what really makes our wellness thrive. And like I said, I oftentimes start out with everybody that I work with. We do a full blown reflection on really looking at, because it can be very overwhelming to have somebody say to you, what are your goals?
Yeah.
Because then your brain's going in 5,000 different directions of what your goals and intentions are for every facet of our life.
Yep.
And so, one of the first things I always suggest people do is kind of break it down into different pillars, is what I call them. So, kind of looking at, what are some things that you can do, and when I say things, I'm not saying like these big grandeur goals that when you immediately look at them on a piece of paper, your brain goes, "You're not going to do that." It does.
Yeah.
If that's the immediate response, probably you're not going to do it. So
Mhm.
it's more so putting down realistic things that are tangible, that are more likely to happen,
Yes.
that are a little bit uncomfortable, but also not so uncomfortable that when you look at them, you're like, there's no way this is happening.
Right.
So that's the first thing when we're talking about any aspect of wellness and supporting our mental health is we don't want to make it so unattainable that then
Mhm.
we just feel more negativity because that's
Right.
really what happens with that.
Right. And can I interject a little thing that made me think of too is like not changing, and you may touch on this, not changing everything all at once.
Right. Yes.
you know, because that's something that, like, if people say, "Well, what's your morning routine?" And I'm like,
Mhm.
that stuff didn't happen overnight for me, though.
Right.
It was one small change
Mhm.
a day or a week or a month, you know, and then
Yes.
over time, this routine starts falling in place. So,
Mhm. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, because that's the other thing. So that's where when you think about, so there's kind of 8 different pillars that I work with my clients on, that we've kind of categorized everything into those 8 pillars. And so what we do is we always go through all 8, and then I only have them pick 3. And it's the 3 that they feel that they struggle with the most.
mhm,
Because the idea is that whenever we focus on those bottom 3, they're going to have the most powerful ripple effect on every other area. If you're rating yourself relatively high on a scale of 1 to 10 in an area, you pretty much have it nailed down. There might be there's always room for growth. I am a
right.
very firm believer, when I say, like, rate it from a 1 to a 10 is not like, it's perfect, I'm not ever gonna touch it again. A 10 is, I feel very confident in this area, but there's still always gonna be room for growth because that's just a belief that we hold.
Yep. I
But
love that.
the bottom 3 is, like, I always use the example of doing the things that are easy for us, that come easily, that we already have habits that we feel confident in. That's like throwing, like, a pebble into a pond in our life. It makes a positive ripple effect, but it's not huge. It's still just kind of like every day, it's already normal. Focusing on those bottom ones and really getting confident with those is like throwing a big boulder into a pond and having,
Mm,
like, a big splash, in our lives that's really going to have an extremely positive ripple effect, on everything else too, because they're the things that have been neglected for so long. I will say they're not always the ones that we may think are super common. Obviously, people come into my world oftentimes for fitness and nutrition. And like I said, those are the 2 things I started with, to really make an impact. And they do very much so make an impact. For fitness, it does not have to look like getting to the gym for an hour, 5 to 6 days a week. That is one thing that I'll say.
I
Um,
like that.
I think we oftentimes have this definition of fitness that is very stereotyped into, I have to take a class, or I have to go and lift weights at the gym, or I have to be doing a workout video at home. I actually don't oftentimes call it fitness. I call it physical movement or physical activity because it kind of opens up and expands us into looking at our day in a little bit of a different way, where maybe you did miss the gym. Maybe you normally go to the gym, but you went, I'll use myself, we went to the zoo on Friday, and I walked. And at 35 weeks pregnant, walking around the entire zoo, that's pretty much a workout,
Yes.
anybody, let alone being that far along. And so that would be something that, would society maybe consider that as fitness? Probably not, because we kind of think as fitness as like going to the gym and taking a class. For me, though, I've expanded that definition of what that looks like. And that was my workout for the day.
Mhm.
Especially when you do have kids, especially little kids that you're chasing
Yep.
around, you're still moving.
Yep.
So
A
it may
lot.
a lot. So it may not be like that stereotypical fitness that you might have in your brain, but you're still moving. So
Mhm.
any sort of movement is a check for me, in our world, in our space, especially when you are somebody from a mindset perspective that has a lot of guilt and shame around missing a stereotypical workout or what have you, or maybe you're just getting started in physical movement and fitness, and you need kind of those little benchmarks to be like, no, I do move my body a
Yeah.
little bit more than I give myself credit for.
Mhm.
So that's for fitness. It's so much bigger than just going and getting a workout in. Now, there is also something to be said about getting somebody to watch the kids or whatever that looks like and going and taking time for yourself.
Yes. Yes.
So, but sometimes that's not always realistic. So
Mhm.
sometimes we have to get creative with anything that we're doing in our
Yep.
life, whether it be fitness or nutrition or, work or whatever it may be.
Mhm.
When it comes to nutrition, I'm very big on what's called mindful nutrition or intuitive eating. And that is a very different approach than what people are used to. Everything that we do is a lot of awareness work. Like you said, Christine, kind of just being aware of what works in your own life. And when you do have something that comes up, what asking yourself, why is this happening?
Mhm.
Instead of just running and taking medicine or avoiding it or whatever it may be, or pretending like it's not there. One of the biggest things that we do in practice, especially from a mindset perspective, is building our awareness. And that is so important too when it comes to our nutrition, because
Yeah.
a lot of us have been chronic dieters. I have been a dieter before myself. And oftentimes they may not have worked for you before. And they may have worked for a little bit and then weren't very sustainable. And that's common. I have a lot of women that kind of are at their wits' end with nutrition and dieting, and they just don't know where to turn. Mindful nutrition is a very different approach from what we're used to. And it's actually more of an unlearning process than anything else. And it does very much so play into also recognizing the emotional side of food. And also, if we are noticing that if you do experience moments of anxiety and depression, does it happen worse when you've eaten a certain type of way all week
Mhm.
or whatever it may be? So it's much more than just here's a meal plan, follow this thing. We don't count calories, we don't count portion sizes or anything like that. It's very much so still eating to honor our bodies. That's
Mhm.
the baseline of it. And really
I
everything
love it.
is, how can I best honor my body from both a physical standpoint and also an emotional standpoint and a mental standpoint? We can heal our body with food,
Yep.
salads and fruits and vegetables and all of that stuff. It's not just that we eat it because it's good for you.
Right.
I do a lot of food education because a lot of people don't understand, well, why? Why is it good for me? What is it actually doing for my mental health? What am I actually consuming that from a biological standpoint it's doing these things in my body? So
Mhm.
where can I find vitamin D and vitamin B? What do those vitamins do for me? What do other vitamins and minerals do for my body and my mental state? And what role do they play? Because that also gives us that confidence to eat those things. It's not just me telling you, oh, this is good for you, just go and eat it. It's actually understanding, well, what is it doing for my mental health? Especially that's what started me on my own nutrition journey. And it does play a big role. Like you said, if you have a headache or you have been experiencing maybe bowel movement issues or something,
Bloating
yeah,
or yeah.
there is a reason for pretty much everything. And so it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to like slap a medication or something like that on it. There's a lot of things that we can do naturally to help heal those different things.
Mhm.
But it's actually taking the time for ourselves to turn inward
Yep.
and not just outward for somebody else giving us a solution.
Yeah.
My job, yes, I am a coach and a mentor to women, but my job is to help extract the resources you have within yourself. I am giving you resources to help practice, but also I am handing you kind of the permission slip to take that time for yourself and really try to figure out what is going on within your own body and your own life, because everybody's so different. I think we have a lot of one size fits all type of things out there where they kind of put everybody in this one category and they think
Yep.
that this one plan is going to fix everyone. And
Mm-mm.
that's just not realistic. Everybody's
Right.
mental health is different. Everybody who experiences mental health things experiences them in different ways. People that have other pre-existing conditions, they might experience some similar symptoms, but then they might have other symptoms that somebody else doesn't get. So
Right.
it's not about this one solution for everybody. And that's really especially when it comes to fitness and nutrition, the two things that a lot of women struggle with. It's about expanding our mindset capacity of it doesn't have to be what everybody else is doing.
Right.
It doesn't have to be what hasn't worked for us in the past and trying to mold it and squeeze it and fit it into our lives when it's not working. We can kind of tweak it and make it fit where we need it to fit too. So there's a lot of things we can do from mindful nutrition and fitness in particular, as well. But when it comes to the stress management stuff, journaling, like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's so huge. I even have like how you said I am statements, not even just I am statements, but other affirmations. I have affirmations that get sent to my phone for birth right
Oh, I love it.
so because I'm doing a physiological birth, and so that takes a lot of mental strength,
Mm-hmm.
even more so sometimes than physical strength, and just kind of like that allowing. So that comes to my phone. There's a ton of apps, not just for birth affirmations. There's a lot of affirmation apps out there that you can use, and just if you just go to the app store, you can get them sent right to your phone. You don't have to necessarily write them yourself. Although I will say pen to paper
Yes.
is very effective. I can't remember the statistic, but everybody says write it down as much as you
Mm-hmm.
so journaling has been very big for me with stress management. I do something called flip the script journaling with my clients, and that is even you don't have to write it down. It's if you have a negative thought or if you have noticed that you have a particular theme of self-talk that happens, especially in a particular area, that is a common thread, starting to flip that around. So similar to an affirmation, but it's basically rewriting your story for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to do that on a regular basis. So if you're constantly saying like, I can't go to the gym because I feel like I need to lose weight first. It's like, well, ask yourself, is there actual like evidence to that makes that statement true? Did anybody ever say to you that was a thing, that you had to be a certain size to actually walk through the gym? These are usually things that we've made up in our
Yeah.
in our own heads.
I love that.
So seeing if it's actually true, and then also flipping it of like, okay, what can I say to myself instead that is more of a positive statement?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So in that case, it could be, I'm gonna go to the gym anyways because I know that it fuels my body well. I need to move. I deserve this time for myself, and I'm there for me. If somebody looks at me or anything like that, they're probably not meaning anything by it. It's just all in our own heads oftentimes. So just kind of rewriting how we think about different situations that have been holding us back in our life and in our wellness routine.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a big one as
I
well.
love that because the other thing that made me think of that is what we have been told generation to generation, and I talked about this in the previous video a lot too, that it was like breaking those generational habits,
Mhm.
breaking those generational patterns that we maybe have been spoken on us for years and years and years, and we have to break out of that, and that takes time and that takes work, internally, but it also can be, finding the right people that are going to be there to lift you up
Oh yeah.
instead of tearing you down.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny that you say. I have a boutique as well, an online boutique, and I have a sweatshirt on there that says generational pattern breaker.
I love that. I love that.
Because this is huge. And this is something that I never really I was doing some of this work for myself on my own healing journey, but I never knew there was really a term for that until I myself had my own mentor kind of share this with me as well, and I've carried it into what I do in the holistic picture as well. And you know, especially when we do think about fitness and nutrition, there's a lot of generational patterning that comes in those areas. I've actually had clients that say that they hate vegetables, for example. And when I ask them, we kind of go back and we do kind of like a history of their experience with food. And sometimes it's newer, last couple of decades if they're older and they might have dieted a lot. And so they kind of resent fruits and vegetables because they didn't really know why they were eating them again, or they were forcing themselves to eat them and they didn't really enjoy them, or they were making them in a way that they don't enjoy. I come from a culinary background as well. I forgot to mention that. So
I love it. You got the whole package here.
we're all over the place over here. But so that's a very big thing of like, we just don't know how to make the food,
Yes.
which can come from generation stuff. If you didn't have a parent to model that for you, that's a very common thing, actually more
Yes.
common than we might think.
Hey,
Um,
we might have to do some, like, cooking shows.
yeah, we
Pop
might.
the pop the baby up on the counter, we'll be good to go.
I know, that's what I'm like, I'm so excited to teach, Caleb is my baby's name, and, I'm so excited to kinda, like, keep him in there with me and just have him
Yeah.
watch me at all times so that he
Absolutely. I
enjoys
mean, that's my kids have been in the kitchen from day one, and
Yep,
they can go and they can make their own food.
yeah,
They know what healthy choices are. And a lot of times, like we talk about, when our body doesn't feel right, what did we do? Right.
yep,
And a lot of times they're like, oh, you know what? I think I had too much sugar.
mhm,
Or, if my head hurts, I think I didn't drink enough water. And it's awesome to be able to see that. They're 6 and 8. For
mhm,
them to be able to recognize that,
mhm,
that's something that
amazing,
was not anything that I learned until I had them,
yep,
and to be able to instill that kind of education and that knowledge into them at a young age, I mean, it's just going to set them up for success because there are times when I feel like I'm continuously trying to undo
mhm,
things that happened in my past,
yep,
and
yep,
like I would rather you guys start fresh,
fresh,
start ahead of the game than have to
and just do it.
undo a lot of the stuff.
Right. Yeah, and that's where, like, the vegetable example again is, I've had people where their parents didn't, like, let them leave the table in unless they ate all of their vegetables, for example. And it's something that is nobody's fault. I think a lot of times, when we talk about breaking generational patterns, it can bring up some anger or resentment towards your parents or your guardians or whoever might have instilled it in you. The thing is they also inherited the generational patterns
Right.
as well. So it's not really anybody's fault. I think oftentimes when we're working through a lot of like very deep rooted internal emotions and patterns and things like that, we want to find like point the finger at something or somebody.
Right.
And this is just not that. It's not anybody's fault. Um, I always say that you don't know until you know,
Right.
which is your parents, your grandparents, they never generational pattern breaking wasn't a thing.
Right.
It
And they
really
didn't they
wasn't.
didn't have the knowledge. I
No,
mean, they didn't have the type of knowledge. I mean, think about the internet. We have so much education at our fingertips at any second.
I know.
They didn't have that.
No.
They communicated with the people in their neighborhood,
Yep.
or in their area, and now we can communicate with people all over the world.
Yeah.
So that is something that you're right. Like, it's not about pointing fingers. It's
Yeah.
just we have so much more knowledge and we can connect with so many more like-minded people all over the world where that really wasn't the case then.
Right. I mean, look at us right now. We're in two different places.
Right.
And that's like the beauty. That's, why I pivoted and you pivoted even prior to COVID. That was on my radar,
Mhm.
to do that, just because it's so important, to find your people,
Yep.
and find people that have, obviously you have different situations that are going on, but to find similarities in mission, especially when it's like this type of stuff that's so deep rooted and can cause a lot of emotional upbringing and all that kind
Mhm.
of stuff. It's so important to have that emotional support. And I think that too is oftentimes what we're missing when it comes to wellness is we think of wellness as like this just stereotype in a box. And it's so much deeper. It is the generational patterns. It is our negative self-talk. I do also focus a lot on limiting beliefs, which often also stem from generational stuff. That is a learned thing where a big one is like, I am not enough,
Mhm.
because maybe you had a parent that you didn't you weren't enough unless you were working, or you weren't enough unless you got straight A's, or whatever it is, or maybe you placed that on yourself at one point in time, and that's just kind of been what you've carried with you into adulthood, from childhood to adulthood. And all of these things are things that we kind of are missing in the formula, so to speak, of wellness support. It's not just as
Mhm.
simple as, here, do this routine, do this workout routine, do this nutrition routine, whatever it is. There's a lot of emotion that
Yeah.
comes with that. There's a lot of thoughts that come up with that, that oftentimes that is actually what holds particularly women especially back, because we are very emotional creatures, and we may hold on to things a lot. And that is actually what I see, like, kind of tripping people up, is it's not that next thing. You know what to do. Like,
Mhm.
we as humans, generally speaking, you know to move, you know what things are good for your system. Self-care techniques that you could try to help support your stress management and things like that. It's really more so what we are saying to ourselves around those different things. I don't deserve this. I don't deserve to take this time for myself. I should be doing this thing. Everybody else needs me. And so I'm just going to put myself on the back burner. Those are all more so the things that trip a lot of people up and keep us kind of on that roller coaster ride. When in reality, I always like to say, like, the formula needs flipped around, or particularly for women and moms. We are so many things to everything and everyone that we oftentimes put ourselves on the bottom of the list, whereas you might not be at the tippy top. I know moms really struggle with, like, me saying, like, you need to be at the top, because that's a hard pill to swallow when you have children, because they oftentimes come first. But if you don't put yourself first or high on the list, or you don't put your relationship high on the list, they're not going to have you, because you're going to be half of a person or
Yeah.
just an empty person, because you have nothing else left inside of you to give, because we can't give. I know it's such a stereotypical thing of, like, you can't pour from an empty cup, but
That's
it's
so true. So true. I spoke on this the other day. It's
yeah.
so true. We do have to fill ourselves up
Yes.
to be able to be there for
Mhm.
our kids, to be able to be there for our family,
Mhm.
mentally, physically, emotionally.
Yes.
We need to be healthy to
Mhm.
be able to take care of them.
Yeah.
So I totally get that. And one of the things we talked about this was, I was working, working, working. I homeschooled the kids, we just go, go, go.
Yep.
And I was getting to this like point of like I couldn't go on any further, right? My brain is fatigued, I'm
Mhm.
fatigued. Well, they were building a puzzle and I just was like, "Sure, I'll
Yep.
come build a puzzle with you." I have a million things on my list. I have
Yep.
a million things that I've got to go do, but I'm going to sit here.
Yep.
One, it was that intentional time that they needed and I was able to sit with them and I was able just to be with them.
Mhm.
No technology, nothing like that. And then I didn't realize I needed it for myself so much more.
Yep.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, like my brain is so much clearer now.
Mhm.
I'm in a better mood."
Yeah.
And then I was able to like, okay, I know what I need to do next,
Yeah.
instead of being overwhelmed with all of the next steps, all of the schedule and things like that. Sometimes taking that break
Mhm.
is what you need.
The things will always be there, and I know I have to tell myself that too,
Me too.
because I am, we're a very, like, a mover and a shaker. I like to get things done, but I saw something actually the other day, and I shared it on my Instagram, and I cannot remember the account that it came from, but it was talking about how a little girl was in the car with her mom, and she was saying how the dad always takes time to play and to have fun and to do things with the kids and all that kind of stuff, whereas like through the lens of her daughter, she only saw her mom as being the doer, like the doing the dishes and making the dinners and all that stuff, and she said like, "Mom, you don't ever take time to play." And it like opened up her eyes, because we don't oftentimes take that time to play,
Yeah.
because we do feel like we have to get all the things done. And
Right.
whether it's play or whether it's taking that time for ourselves, it's like it's almost reverting back to the way you were before kids,
Mhm.
that actually helps you be a better parent, I think.
Mhm.
And that is, what are it's kind of like when I have somebody that has empty nest syndrome, because I've had this happen before too, is like one of my first questions is, well, what did you enjoy doing before you had kids? Because at some point you stop doing those things.
Yep.
And that is kind of what helps women and anybody get back to themselves again. It's like you are not just a mom.
Yep.
It's very easy to fall into that, and it's something that as about to be a new mom, I really wanna be aware of. My husband and I have already discussed, like, we still wanna make date nights a priority. Maybe it won't be as often as we do now, but they still need to be a priority. We still need to take time for ourselves, both individually and together away
Yep.
from the baby, and that's all stuff that it's a very easy slope to kind of fall into, because there's a lot of judgment sometimes around
Yep.
that. Even though self-care is a very like hot topic, there's still a lot of people that will judge if you take time for yourself, because it means that
Absolutely.
you're not taking time with your kids and stuff like that. So it's still an important thing, but also like you said, we can also get creative, and it can also include the kids. If
Mhm.
you can't get to the gym to work out and you want to get a workout in, do a workout at home with the
Yep.
kids. If
Yep.
they're a
And
toddler,
that's my whole philosophy.
yeah,
I do everything with my kids. However, I do prioritize
yeah, mhm,
my time by
yourself.
myself
Yep.
with my husband, his time. But you're absolutely right. Like my kids, I didn't go to the gym.
Mhm,
I have a workout program that I do and they watch me every morning, except
yep.
for the times I miss.
Yeah. Which is
Do my
okay.
workout, and they come in and they grab the weights and they want to work out with me, or they sit on the couch and they snuggle up while I finish up,
Yeah.
and they're just watching that positive example too,
Yes.
which is a huge, huge thing.
Yes, and that also has a ripple effect into the generational stuff that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's just a natural thing. They see everything. They
Oh
hear
yeah.
everything, they see everything.
They're little
Um,
sponges.
yes, and so, like you said, like, taking them into the kitchen, like we talked about, and having them watch or have them be a part of it, or, just not disrupting all the things that you used to do. Obviously, there needs to be some change and compromise, when you do have a little child with you or multiple children with you. But you can still do a lot of things
Yeah,
that you used to do. It's
absolutely.
oftentimes our own minds or somebody else telling us or placing their own limiting beliefs on a situation, like traveling with kids or
Mhm. Taking them to the ball games. I
yeah,
mean, my kids
whatever.
have been to all sporting events in Pittsburgh
Yeah.
since they were 1 month old,
Yeah.
and people like,
Don't tell my husband that, 'cause he wants to take he wants to take Caleb to the Steeler home opener. I'm like, "No."
"You should do it. You should do it."
If I go with him, maybe, but I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm not having him be around a bunch of
No. Yeah,
drunk
you've gotta be
guys at
there.
the at the home
You
opener.
gotta be there. No, we did that. We went to the Pirate home opener. She was 1 month old, get some little headphones if you think it's gonna be too
We have
loud.
those, yeah,
Yeah, just be prepared. That is ultimately the biggest thing is we're prepared for everything, Ironically, it was one of the hottest home
yeah.
openers in Pittsburgh ever. It was like 90 degrees
Oh gosh.
in April, and I was like, "Of course, the
Yeah,
one time I bring my one-month-old baby, it's
right.
hot." But we made it work. We went up to
Yeah,
the air conditioning restaurant, and you
yeah,
just kind of have to get creative, like you said,
yeah,
So No, this was so wonderful. You guys can see how Jessa and I can just talk for hours.
Yeah, this could be like 2 hours long plus
Right.
if we really
Right.
wanted to do it.
Oh, we just have so many things in common. So we will definitely have you back on the show. We definitely have so many more things to be able to share with you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Because Jess, you are just a powerhouse. I just am so honored to know you and to have you on the show,
Thank you.
especially before the birth of your little
Yes.
one. So that's so
So
exciting.
excited. We're
We'll
very
definitely have you after, and we'll see how all of this
excited.
comes full
Yes.
circle.
Yeah. Now is like it's I have to, not just talk the talk, I gotta walk the walk now.
In the newborn stage, we'll be asking. We'll see.
Yes, yes. I'm sure it'll be a transition. That's another thing that I focus on a lot with people is transition,
Mhm.
because that's also what oftentimes disrupt things, and it's okay.
Yeah,
It'll get disrupted, and then you find your
you knew
equilibrium again, and
exactly the new routine.
you're okay.
Things are going to happen, things come up, but you just got to roll with the punches and say, okay, now we're going to pivot, and I talk about this with my clients schedule wise, sure, like, oh, we got the schedule down pat, we're good to go. And then there's a change,
Yeah.
summer's coming or fall or vacation or whatever that looks like. And it's like, okay, no
Yeah.
problem. This is the schedule for this amount of time.
Mhm.
And how do we change it,
Yeah.
for the next time?
It's
So, oh, so many wonderful things, so many gold nuggets here. I love it all. So Jess, where can everyone find you?
So I am on Facebook and Instagram mostly, as far as the socials go. So I am Jess Hathaway on Instagram, and I am Jess Hathaway Burkhart on Facebook is my personal one, and then the holistic picture is the business page on there. And then my website is just jesshathaway.com. It has all my programs on there. It has the online boutique on there. And then I also actually have a 3-day sneak peek for free inside my coaching programs with all of the course content. And you can also set up a quick call with me if you want to chat and ask me questions, and we'll kind of get you started on few little things and see which program is best for you. And I did send that link over.
Mhm.
So Christine has that linked for you.
Yep, we'll add that right in the show notes here. So you guys have all of those links and you guys are able to get in contact with Jess at any time on any platform and then definitely check out that sneak peek that she has. But we will definitely be having you back. Thank you, Jess, so much for all of your wonderful, valuable information. Just an honor to have you. Any final thoughts before we say goodbye for today?
I just always leave everybody with the fact that you deserve this. You deserve this community. You deserve to take time for yourself. I know that sometimes that is all we need is that little bit of a permission slip from somebody to get us going. And so just know that you are worth that time. And for everybody out there that thinks that we need to do everything for everyone and make them the priority, you can do that on like such a higher level with so much more joy and happiness if you take care of yourself first.
Yeah,
And so that can oftentimes be your motivator too, is
absolutely.
you are still doing something for someone else by taking care of yourself first,
Yes.
because then you can just pour into everybody with so much more joy and happiness. So I will leave you with that. And my door is always open if you ever want to chat or just connect. I'm here for you.
I love that. Thank you so much, Jess. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for
Such
having me.
great words of wisdom. I love it. So, thank you all, everyone, for being here. And I just want to send you off and share with you, sending you guys so much love, hugs, happiness, and health. Have a great day, guys. Bye.